Grazie.
Grazie.
Good evening, and welcome to this third webinar of the cycle dedicated to the Accessible Environment Inclusive Society project. My name is Lolly Choi Funk, and I was invited to coordinate this webinar. 2 words to introduce myself. I am, as I said, I'm Lolly. Some friends call me also Choi, and I am about 5'6.5" tall, quite tall for a woman regularly. I wear glasses. I have dark hair, but don't be fooled. I'm 58 years old already. Some women wouldn't say their age, but I'm saying that I am. I'm a widow, and I have 4 children, aged 23 to 31, quite old already. I am an architect, I'm an educator, and a community builder. And I work with a lot of poor people, but in my country, it's really a mix between this very poor and also the affluent. But I have been very concerned about the plight of people with disabilities. It is for this reason that I enjoy very much this work that I'm doing with my friends here. This webinar is part of a training and a discussion path to spread a culture of environmental accessibility, thinking of a world where no one, regardless of their physical or cognitive condition, encounters more barriers that can affect their mobility and limit relationships, prevent him from full realization as a person and as a citizen. In the first webinar, because we have had by now a number of webinars. The first one that we had, we began this journey by reflecting on a fundamental dimension of man, which is the limitations. That becomes a disability when it encounters barriers. In the second webinar, we started thinking about how to deal with barriers, how to remove them, how to avoid building them. You know, as an architect, I was really very interested in that particular webinar, and I really listened to 2 experts, an engineer and an architect, introducing to us the basic principles of barrier-free design. One of them is here, Renzo. Amazing presentation the last time. A politician then told us how he managed to eliminate many architectural and social barriers in his territory, starting from his personal experience of disability and from a wide involvement of the institutions. You can review the recording of these 2 webinars on the project website. It's in www.aiescloud.cloud. There you go. If you go to this website, you will find the recording of the 2 past webinars. Now, in this webinar, we will continue the reasoning on how to remove or prevent barriers. But how? We will deal in particular with the accessibility to education, information, culture, and communication. In the webinar, you will see, in this webinar, we will see 2 contributions. First is from Brazil, and it is a real lesson in which an expert in the field will introduce us to the principles of universal design, applied to the educational context and access to information and culture. In particular, the expert, she will explore 3 aspects that govern the relationship between people and information, or the educational content: multimedia, multiformity, and involvement. The second contribution is from the Philippines. Recount recounts the experience of inclusion carried out in a large educational institution that has a wide range of educational offerings. The first contribution, the one in Brazil, will be spoken in Portuguese. And you will hear and you will read also translation in English. The second will be in English, both with subtitles in English and the possibility to hear the subtitles read by the speaker is no need for the interpretation because we will hear it in English. So now it will be one after the other. So let's prepare ourselves and watch 2 contributions, 2 videos.
Olá a todos e
Hello,
todas.
everyone. We are here today to talk about accessibility in information and communication, and therefore about inclusion. As a good example of accessibility, I start by introducing and describing myself. I'm Rita Berge. I'm a physiotherapist. I live in Porto Alegre, a city in southern Brazil. I'm a fair-skinned woman and I wear glasses with clear frames. My hair is light brown and straight and reach my shoulders. I wear a very colorful printed blouse with geometric shapes, and behind me there is a wall with a curtain, white curtain. When it comes to accessibility, the first things that comes to mind are places with ramps, lifts, tactile floors. Isn't that true? Let's imagine an ideal place where everyone can enter and move freely. Let's look at some examples in a public school in the city of Florianópolis in Brazil. Here you see a ramp that connects one floor to another. On the white floor, there is a blue-colored tactile strip, which has a high visual. The ramp is wide and has handrails and side rails. In this other photograph, inside the school, we see wide corridors, where the white floors contrast with dark blue tactile stripes. The doors are orange, the walls are white, and the lower part, the tiles are white and dark blue. The blue tiles are arranged in 2 rows parallel to the ground. A dark stripe highlights the base of the wall. The other is placed roughly in the compares. These markings, these contrasts are very useful for visually because they perceive where the floor ends and the wall begins. Incredible, right? This school is welcoming and has been barrier-free, designed to accommodate students, teachers, employees, family members, the entire school community. When an architect designs a school based on universal design, he or she wants that any people be able to use the space. And that's why he or she takes into account that everyone is different and that from birth to adulthood, we go through many transformations that modify our physical, cognitive, and sensory abilities. Designing for everyone implies anticipating these specific needs and including accessibility requirements into the project from the very beginning. In this way, the school building is born inclusive. However, what we are asking now is it enough to have a building without architectural barriers to ensure access, participation, and learning of students with disabilities together with their colleagues? We can say that accessibility goes far beyond architectural requirements. The concept of universal design enters the classrooms when the teacher is aware that all students are different. That is, the teacher must include in this teaching program all requirements related to the differences in his or her students. When we work with universal design in mind in education or learning, we don't look at the students with disabilities as the different from whom to make adaptations. When we are inspired by universal design, difference ceases to be a problem and becomes a standard that will guide the organization and objectives, teaching materials, methods, and assessments. So let's deepen the fundamentals of learning. Let's try to understand what is needed for the purpose of learning and to transform it into requirements for the design. To understand this in practice, we can refer to the three basic principles of universal design. One of the principles is the multiplicity of ways of representing a content. Yes, multimedia, we learn through these senses. All the information around us comes in through our senses: sight, hearing, touch, smell, perceptions of the body in motion. The use of different media, in addition to the written text and the teacher's speech, offers more opportunities for participation and context exploration for all students and ensures accessibility. This happens implicitly when we predict, for example, that visual content also has an audio version or a map or a tactile graphics or a voice description of the images. That is part of the study material, and this will be of benefit for blind students, for example. In the audio content is accompanied by sign language and visual version, we support deaf students. The concepts to be learned can be represented by images. This is accessibility for students with intellectual disabilities and a useful support for deaf students. Manipulated objects can teach mathematical operations in a concrete way, and this can be a great help for small children, or for students who have difficulty understanding. Operation in symbolic form. A student who has an intellectual disability or dyslexia, for instance, can have better access to written content thanks to the reading of text in a digital mode. The computer and the cell phone can read for this student. See what Larissa tells us. She is a young woman with Down syndrome, fair skin, straight and fair hair, who is sitting in front of her computer and is studying the history of European. So on the computer, it is easier to study, to read. In the book, no, I have to read it. There is no image. And here you have to look at the image to understand the text. By the computer itself reads you. To grasp that the content is to understand more. This program here helps me, but it helps everyone, my colleagues too. Another principle of universal design is learning in the use of multiple forms of actions and expressions. We learn as we plan and execute. We practice the concepts we want to assimilate. We act on the object of knowledge, and at the same time, we communicate what we are learning. Again, we should envisage multiple forms of action expression for students. Writing, drawing, photography, film, word, music, manipulation of objects, etc. Accessibility can be included right from the start. The student who cannot write will be able to draw or edit text by voice, for example. Those who do not use a pencil due to physical difficulties can use a mechanical or virtual keyboard, or even a mobile alphabet in the early years. In this other film, Guilherme, a young man with light skin and short dark hair, wearing glasses, is in front of his computer. Due to physical difficulties, he used a mouse, which has, I can't read now, and file color, I can't read, there is a chat. Stickers with larger letters have been glued to the keyboard keys to compensate and facilitate their location. Guilherme is talking to the computer and his voice turns into a written text. At school, he has asked to write an essay on a topic of interest. Carol passed by the two boys and they asked, Is this girl that Carrie is looking for a couple to find a treasure? In the sequence, Guilherme shows us how he searches for and accesses content by controlling the computer with his voice. I will do a voice search. I'm planning on doing a Little Prince comedy. See the book, The Little Prince. I will put it to read. The book tells the story of a pilot, and after the shutdown his plane in the Sahara Desert, he finds a little boy known to the readers as the Little Prince. See how the difficulty or slowness in reading and writing, it is no longer an obstacle for the exploration of hidden knowledge in previously inaccessibility. The computer is a very important tool to facilitate accessibility to school. Software and hardware facilitate accessibility. Assistive technologies and universal design collaborate in learning like two sides of the same coin. Assistive technology empowers people with disabilities to use your computer independently. Blind, deafblind, people with physical disabilities, people with intellectual disabilities, they will find software and hardware tools that meet their needs and enhance their individual skills. Computer control can be done with movements of the eyes, with the voice, with a single gesture, which activates the click functions. The information obtained from the computer can also be presented in different formats: audio, images, text, tactile tools, like a braille bar, for example. We see in this image a keyboard with 12 white keys and larger keys. Combined with typing of these keys produced letters using the 6 dots of the braille cell. In front of the keys, we see a horizontal line with about 40 cells. They reproduce the braille characters in relief of the tip of the finger. So all the content that is displayed on the monitor becomes perceptible to the blind or deafblind user. Incredible, right? A blind person can access the same contents through hearing, a deafblind person through touch. I would also like to point out that one of the most important obstacles to learning is communication. Communication is a necessary condition in the act of teaching and learning. Based on this premise that everyone can communicate and that everyone can communicate more and better, we invest in tools and in strategies that expand the capacity of expression and understanding of students who have complex needs in communication. At this point, the schools must know and undertake the commitment to promote internally new ways of communicating. We are talking about alternative communication, where we have lower high-tech tools such as printed or digital communication tables. In them, the user indicates the symbols to communicate. Let's see this example, a folder with graphic symbols. The symbols are indicated by the user to represent the message he or she wants to communicate. I want eat food. Chocolate. So far, we have talked about two principles of universal design in the context of learning: multiply ways of representing the object of knowledge, object of study, and multiply ways to express yourself and act on that object. We will now see the third principle, involvement. We learn when something makes sense to us, when it's interesting, when we know where we are going, and why we are doing in this way. If involved, students can become experts in ACT, and they will leave school knowing how to ask good questions, identify the best strategies to search and apply the knowledge required. We talked about the fundamentals of universal design in a learning context, whose reference can be found on cas.org. Accessibility in information and communication are not just a request from the school, are they? We can imagine a theater, a cinema, a football field, a restaurant, a church, a shop, a public or private customer support service. Accessibility requirements ensure that information and communication can and should be present, both in virtual services, websites, online forums, social networks, etc., and in face-to-face for people with disabilities. Accessibility in a condition as we have seen it, concern how we move on the street, but also the way to access information and the communication methods with other people. Let's see for some examples of tools and actions we can use. Audio description, for example. Audio description is a form of accessibility, focusing on people with visual. It is a narrated description of what happens in a program without overlapping, mainly the elements that cannot be perceived with ordinary audio alone, like facial expressions, objects in the scene. There is nothing better than watching a short video, an example of how audio description applies to cinema. A clapperboard opens and closes. Behind the clapboard, a blind athlete. In the pool, André dives, he swims, butterfly style. I come to swim here. I've always enjoyed my life and I will never stop. On the black screen, the title of the film, Jogo Blind, with the white letters and braille, and the website. A young woman exercises on the running track. Today, I have 78 medals in total, 10 of which in a shoe shop, a young man meets a customer, Magno, who does not see. He runs the shop himself, even with his disability. Magno dusts carefully the shoes lined up on the shelf. The dark silhouette of a rider pulling his horse contrasts with the light of the sky. Adapted sport is a question of training. It's great for the following. A simple change of weather changes many things. I have to change several commands, which I normally do. The night trots with a horse around the arena. The camera focuses on the horse legs with white garters. It is a sunny day in a wooded park. Two athletes run side by side, tied to a rope around their wrist. When you see, sometimes you don't value certain things. When you lose your sight, you end up having more awareness of when you see. In the backyard, of a blind girl is sitting on a tree trunk. She stands up and her mother holds her legs. The giant girl introduces herself. Come and see a giant up close. Help us share these stories. Soon the movie Blind Game will be available for free. Subscribe to our channel, youtube.com/jogo cego. Speaking of access to culture, we also have the option of audiobooks for the inclusion of the blind. Audiobook or voice activation on digital text also helps people with dyslexia, illiteracy, or intellectual disabilities. Sign language. Each country has its own sign language or sign language. Here in Brazil, we have Libras, Brazilian Sign Language, legally recognized. This is very positive. Subtitling. Can this also be considered an accessibility tool? Yes, subtitling is also an accessibility feature for deaf people. For this reason, not only foreign films should be subtitled, but also regional languages films. We have many deaf people who don't know the Libras, Brazilian Sign Language. They speak, they read from the speaker's lips, and they also communicate in writing. Subtitles in television, in movies are essential for accessibility. Dubbing. Dubbing is useful for blind people who wish to watch a foreign film because the translation into subtitles is a barrier for them. Braille. Let's see an example of use of a Braille, which allows tactile reading to the blind in tourism. This is a city of Naples, seen from a viewpoint. The city of Naples is seen from above, and on the protective wall, a metal handrail bears a legend in Braille. It describes the landscape ahead, the old town and its houses. Even in a museum, we have to identify the accessibility requirements in order to allow people with disability a relational experience with the artwork. Here we see replicas of paintings made in relief to be explored with your hands. One shows a man at a table, the other, the facade of a house with an open window. We also have a photo of a woman seen from behind in front of a painting, holding a small electronic device that describes what you see in the headphones. We could quote many other examples of accessibility to information, but one of the things we suggest if we want to transform the places we frequent into accessibility places, it is to invite to these environments, real or virtual, know the tools, the technologies there are used, and learn from them what needs to be learned, to be changed, and what needs to be implemented so that their needs are taken into consideration. There is no accessibility without presence of people with disabilities. Inclusion. At the same time, there is no inclusion without accessibility. Accessibility is an act of welcome. It is an act of love. Everyone in the way it is, and it doesn't have to change to participate. Therefore, his is a great challenge for all of us.
Since its inception, De La Salle College of St. Benilde has been in the forefront of inclusive education in the Philippines. Starting as a college that caters to the needs of working students and the Filipino deaf community, Benilde over the years opened its arms to different marginalized groups such as persons with disabilities and those with learning conditions. To formalize its efforts in supporting students with learning needs, the college established the Center for Inclusive Education in 2015.
It started out as something voluntary, and it grew to become an office to assist students with special learning needs, not just during the time that they were outside of class, but also to assist them inside the classroom by providing accommodations that would allow them to participate and engage in their classes. And also, there were inclusion advocacy activities like seminars and workshops for them to understand the different disabilities and what kind of values they needed to exhibit so that they would be able to support our students and make sure that they succeed in their college life. So the way that we define Benildean inclusion is the continuous effort of the Benildean community to break barriers. So it's not just an end goal or a result, but it's actually the journey and the process. It's about providing reasonable accommodations to everyone in the community, students, associates, and other partners of the college, so that we're able to work towards Benilde's full potential towards inclusion.
Since formalizing its inclusion efforts, the college has assisted around 200 students with specific learning needs and helped countless other members of the community.
Benilde has always been such a welcoming place to me. I've met so many amazing people there, so many great advisors and professors who have really helped my journey
Being in Benilde and joining the Best Buddies organization under the Center for Inclusive Education really changed my life because they taught me that by the simple act of kindness, love, acceptance, and friendship that you extend towards everybody, we can slowly turn the world around and make it a better place.
The inclusion efforts of Benilde enable me to become an overall better person, not just a teacher for the sake of teaching. These invigorate in me greater responsibility and deepen my understanding of people.
I'm just really, really happy and fortunate to be part of a society or a community that gives such great importance to inclusivity.
After I graduate college, I plan on continuing to pursue my advocacy towards inclusion by using my knowledge as a multimedia art student to create materials and collaterals to help people of the world understand how they can be more inclusive.
There is also an evident increase of strength in the culture of inclusion in Benil. This is seen in the growing number of students and employees who are becoming advocates for inclusion. All these are summed up by the current reputation of the college as one of the best inclusive higher education institutions in the Philippines.
One thing that I'm proud of with Benilde is that when we say we are inclusive, it means that we are inclusive from the time that you apply to us until the time that you get to graduate. And it is our hope that we're able to actually provide assistance even with placement for internships and also placement in employment. That's one thing that we hope other Lasallian schools will replicate, as well as other private higher education institutions in the Philippines and even the state universities and colleges. We're still hoping that in the future, Benildian inclusion will seep down to the very core of Benilde, that every person who is a Benildian, you will really be able to live out inclusion in every day.
With each passing day, the college becomes closer to its goal of creating a just and humane society. This is possible through the continued efforts of the college as well as the undying support of the community. Without a doubt, inclusion is in the DNA of each Benildian. Indeed, we are Benildians for all.
Wow. Um, Now, we have just watched two very important interventions, which have like I couldn't help smiling. The whole time that we were listening to it, I really felt that there were a lot of suggestions that they gave to us, so that we can actually understand better how we can communicate. So I'd like to invite everyone to take the time to freely share your experiences or your insights, reflections on what you've seen here among us here in Zoom. I'd like to ask everyone to turn off your mics unless you're going to speak. In which case, if you want to share something, there is down your screen reactions. You can click it and then raise your hand so that we'd be able to see who would like to speak. But then we're not a lot here, so you could, but to put some order, okay, that's better. So because the system will automatically put you one after the other. I really would like to invite everyone to share something, not about what you have heard, because it's like let us turn it into a game. It's actually an exercise in creativity. Like, what might I be able to do where I am? something like what I've heard. That's also a question that you can answer. And then with all of these ideas, you can either share, or if you would like also, on the chat, we have put a link for a Padlet. If you have used Padlet before, it will be an amazing chance for us to keep sharing, because you click it and you're automatically brought to a tab where there is a virtual background. And if you've used it before, then it's okay. You know, you double click and then a square will come out, and then you just write explore. It's quite user friendly. Otherwise, here, this is how it looks like. The question that you may answer is that, what can I do in my area or territory? On the underneath it, there's a plus in a circle, a plus sign. If you click it, it will open up for you a box, and you can write there whatever you want to share, and feel free. It's such a gift to hear from you of your own experience. You have to know that we learn from each other. We have learned already in the videos that we have watched. Now, if there's something that you are reminded, you may want to include it there. So let's learn from each other. And then lastly, the wonderful thing is that the one who breaks the ice is really a great one. So who'd like to start? Please feel free. Click reactions there and then raise hand like that. Echo. We start with Renzo.
I wanted to be the great person.
You're the great one. Yes.
No, I have to tell you a little experience about preparing these webinars, because we had the challenge of making this media accessible, and without professional resources, I mean. And as we have noticed, in the second video, we could listen to in original language. So it was easier to understand who were speaking, because there was a narrator, there was a woman, there was a man, there was a professor, there was a student. So I think it was very easy. Only the subtitling was enough for perfect listening from a person who is blind, for example, because I mean, the pictures behind were not essential to the understanding, because everything was said in the spoken word. So the person who has written the script, I think clearly has taken into consideration that, I mean, nothing has to be based only on pictures or only on text. Yes. Okay, so that's good. If we look at the first video, first I think I have to say congratulations to the speaker, because to the teacher, to Professor Rita, because she was able to condensate the topic in 20 minutes, very wide topic in very effective way. And I also congratulate to the reader, who had a perfectly clear voice and in perfect English, despite being a Brazilian. However, the limit was that having just one speaker, in some points, I don't think that everybody has understood who was speaking in that moment. For example, do you remember that guy? His name was Guilherme, who was yes. speaking to the computer. So yes. At a certain point, he was speaking to the computer, and then the computer was reading by synthetic voice. Yes. I mean, this could not be captured through one speaker saying that. And especially afterwards, when the Rita spoke about the audio description of a film, of a movie, if you listen in original language, you will understand that there will be a kind of narrator of audio description. And this narrator has a very different voice with lower pitch. So you clearly understand that is not an actor, not a protagonist, is something else in the background doing that. So when they say, for example, there is a horse, this was an audio description, and at a certain point was the protagonist speaking. Yeah. So it's, of course, you know, if you have a professional team and and money to pay professionals, the technical team, you can do with actors doing that. So it's really a challenge. It is possible, but
yes.
But it is important, I think, this attempt to try. Also, this way, as Lolly started by describing herself, as Rita, Professor Rita described herself. This is a good way to introduce, because a person with low vision or blind may clearly grasp a person if you are in a presence, because you know the environment gives an idea who is in front of you. But this is not the case when it is a virtual presence on the screen. So it's very important to give an impression on how you look like.
Oh, yes, exactly. You know, this is one of the things that I've learned. This is just the third webinar we have. And I have heard you, Renzo, describe yourself. In fact, I was saying, why do we have to say the color of our hair? Or if I was wearing glasses like this, it's really in consideration, you know, giving consideration to the next person who may not see. And so you say, so I just felt that there was so much love also in doing it. And so it's an amazing thing. Now we'd like to see something that was written on the Padlet. What can I do in my area or territory? Here is a national free resource on applying universal design learning. It's a reference that you can go to. But you know, you have the link of this Padlet. You may continue writing on it, and then you can also take this information for you, because it is available to you now. So it's in your computer, and you can always make use of the information that is written here. Please feel free to write, and if there's anyone also who wants to share some more, please feel free. Aside from here, so we have two possible ways to share, through the Padlet, or exactly as Renzo has done. He has shared his impression on how to do. I mean, really quite an experience, right? To a vehicle. Communication really is a vehicle. Is there anyone else? Here we go back to the Zoom. Let us see. Is there anyone who would like to share? Echo, here, Herman. Please unmute yourself and then share. Herman is from Belgium.
About St. Benilde School, how the inclusion is organized, but are the students and the people with learning disabilities are in the same classes or the same building, I understand, or when they meet, or they do the same lessons, or I think it's not so easy to organize. I try to understand it a little bit, how you organize the inclusion, but maybe it will keep us too long to much.
Interesting, right?
Yes.
Okay, maybe Jemai, who's here, he is from the college. There are actually two of them from the College of St. Benilde.
Okay.
Jemai, you want to share?
Yes. Hi. Good evening from the Philippines. Hi, Sir Herman. Thank you for the question. So to be perfectly clear, our students with learning conditions are integrated in the regular classes. To be honest, if you're in Benilde, you won't even notice who are those with conditions or not, because they are perfectly integrated. The way that we support them is by talking to their professors. I believe Attorney Jude and Architect Choi experienced this before, that if they have students with learning conditions, we will talk to them and ask them for reasonable accommodations, so that our student with a condition can adjust and can thrive in their class.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe Jude, whose hand is raised also, could segue into that also.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Jude.
I'm a special education teacher. I'm a lawyer, and I'm also an academic administrator. I have taught a lot of students with different disabilities, for instance, blind, with ADHD, with autism, and psychosocial needs like depression. and bipolar. All right. At the beginning of the class, at the start of the trimester, somebody from the office of GEMI, the Center for Inclusive Education, they will provide a letter through the students wherein they inform the teacher that this student has special needs, and there are suggestions on how to make accommodations. For instance, extended examination, okay, extended time, or special sessions. And so what I do is I ask further if I am too fast, or there is a different way of presenting the lessons, or do you want to have extra session with me, or do you want to have more materials given to you, which is more than what I'm doing in my class. For instance, in the case of the blind student, before she had a companion, but what I did was to talk to the student and maximize her independence. So what happened is that I prepared my materials in text and send it to her in advance. She has an app on her laptop which can read the text. So she comes to the class already prepared with the lesson. And what will happen is that during the class session, she's with the other students, and it will be reinforced by way of the activities. The exam is also done in real time. So what happened is that what I do is I upload the examination, because the rest do have what is called as the paper examination. But for the blind student, I upload the question on Messenger in Facebook, and she will answer on the laptop. And she will be able to finish at the same time with the class. All right. And for the student with autism, what I do is I have extra sessions with him, because it could be the pacing is different, and he needs more sessions so that the materials will be comprehended by him. What is wonderful are the classmates. They're very supportive. So the classmate who is sitting beside him will assist or provide additional explanation. And what I have been discovering is that when there are group works, the students, they will be the ones to ask the student with special need, do you want to join us? That is so wonderful.
Yeah, it's really a creation of culture, no? That happens. That sometimes you don't teach it anymore, but the students, they react in a way that it's a culture.
And for the teacher, I become so creative because I keep on looking for solutions. And one of the things that I remember is there's no such thing as technique, because what works for one student will not work for the other.
Yeah.
And so the creativity comes in, and I get so fulfilled. I have no extra pay, but it's what I call a psychic income. Okay, the good feeling, and it is tax-free, and it is not subject to inflation.
But how many students you have? Because it's a lot of extra work. No, how many students you have?
The maximum number of students in a class is 40.
40?
Yeah,
yes.
40. Okay.
A lot.
That's a lot to know.
Yeah.
But when we do the extra part, okay, actually it feels good. Okay. And I think that is my payment for doing the extra work. I become better in terms of teaching, but at the same time, it makes me feel good. It's a way wherein you try to give back to society for the good fortune that we receive. And so really, I believe in what somebody said, that these acts of kindness, they have a way of getting back to you. And I think Joy and Jeremiah will know what I'm talking about, because they're also practicing that.
Yes, true. So thank you so much, Jude, so much. Again, Jemai would like to say something again, and then we go to Cynthia. You want to add something,
Yes.
Jemai?
Yes. Thank you very much, Attorney Jude, for that. Just to add to what Attorney Jude said, and to Architect Choice comment earlier regarding our culture. we in Binild, we do this inclusion thing twofold. First is to support the student who is currently there. So like what we said and what Attorney Jude shared earlier, we give accommodations to the students. On the other hand, we also build the culture of inclusion in Binild. So to be perfectly honest, we've been doing this inclusion thing for the past 30 years. We just formalized it mid to 2010s. So right now we're formalizing it, and we're building or formalizing this culture of inclusion in our institution. So the goal here is to create an environment that is inclusive for everyone. So our ultimate goal, uh, internally in our office, our center, our ultimate goal is to have not to don't sorry to be dissolved in the future, or we want to go to the point wherein we are not needed by the community already, because they are inclusive, and the accommodations that we give are not needed anymore by the students, because the professors are inclusive, their co-students are inclusive, and the whole process, everyone in the community is inclusive. So that's our dream, to be not relevant in the future. I know it's long shot, or it's a very long process, but slowly I think we're going there.
Great,
Thank you.
great. Thank you, Jamai. Thank you so much. Cynthia, you before, yeah, we're nearing the end, but it's important that we hear from you. Cynthia, thank you. You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you, because today I reflect myself a lot of about inclusivity, because if we want to do inclusion, the accessibility is essential. Accessibility is the act of love to accept all the diversity, so that will become real inclusion, because I'm running a special education center, a small center, and then becoming depends on the demand. Now I have a high school, so inclusion is, we talk a lot about inclusion, but actually we are not there yet, because the accessibility is quite challenging for us. For assisted technology, now you show us the school environment is very welcoming and very inclusive. So I realized, oh, in my school, I would have to do that one, So it gave me a lot of idea and a lot of new insight for me. So another thing is the university for the children with special people with disability. I really want to do that university in Myanmar, because in our country it's quite challenge, have a lot of challenges to accept all these things, because our culture, our belief, and our attitudes, we have to do a lot. But if I have a chance in future, I would like to go and visit to Philippines, that university, how to run a university, and I would like to apply all these modification, accommodation, all these policies to our country policy maker, because some of the learning disability or learning difficulty children, they are like dyslexic children, they have no chance to go to university because of this their diversity and their special needs. So a lot of children are facing these difficulties. I saw a lot of people in our country. So this is very valuable Zoom presentation for me. Inspired me a lot, and I want to do, it gives me motivation out of our stress and, feeling lost for our future. But that this meeting made me very meaningful for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cynthia. You will stay in touch, okay? For when you come to the Philippines, okay? Thank you. And now, Gerald from Ireland.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow on from Cynthia there, but very inspiring, and I love the phrase from Cynthia's presentation on accessibility is an act of welcome, and from both Jeremiah and Jude, the infection of joy, very infectious. So and that would have been my experience when I was very involved in frontline work, was the joy of working with people and the success of and it's hard work, but there's huge reward. I think the term you used, Jude, was it psychic
income.
Psychic income. Yes. And there's no inflation or tax on it.
No.
So well done. Great stuff.
Great. Thank you so much. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, for such a and now we have reached the end of our, but please, we need your sharing. We'd like to ask you, feel free to write here. We'll take note of in the chat, but it'll be so much beautiful if you can write it on the Padlet. If you can continue even after the program, please continue to write on the Padlet. And then we'd like to let you know that our next webinar will be on December 11. But watch out for announcements. And we'd like to ask you if you can invite more friends like this, not just to watch on the day, exactly as Renzo was saying, that maybe tonight we're creating this material, but to tell your friends that it's available in YouTube, and the website is written also on the chat. It's www.aeis.com. And then before we take the photo, no one leaves, I'd like to call on Louisa, who may want to share something. No, Louisa, can you focus on her?
No, sorry. I'm just saying goodbye.
Yes.
I have to go.
Yes, she has to go. But thank you so much for the translation. That's amazing. And you were such an agile translator. And see you again. So
thank you. Bye.
Yeah, Louisa will go. Now can we ask for a picture for all of us who are here? I will go to gallery, and we take our picture. Okay. Please smile. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Another one. Okay. Thank you so much. And again, I invite you to share some more at the Padlet. Let's stay in touch, and let's keep this love alive, because the world needs it. So thank you so much for tonight, and all the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So great.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you. Amazing, Benil. And